Sometimes in Reno, Nevada, there are not a lot of games going on. That's just the reality. And that's the case on this Friday morning. My days off of work now are Thursday and Friday, so I figured it'd be fun. Take a trip a couple of hours over Donner Pass and check out the games over in Sacramento, California. There are two casinos there that have poker. You have Thunder Valley, and then you have Stone's Gambling Hall. I've played at Thunder Valley before, but I've never played at Stone's. So if all goes according to plan, I'm going to play at both of them on this vlog. Thunder Valley Casino, just outside Sacramento, California. Back here for the first time since October of 2016. I remember actually stopping in here to play a tournament after I was at a Green Day concert in Berkeley. Love Green Day, can't get enough of them, but I hate tournaments. And as was usually the case, in that tournament I played all day and busted near midnight without cashing, which is why I stick to cash. And that's what I'm gonna do here. The room at Thunder Valley has been renovated. I haven't seen it since, so I'm kind of curious to see what it's looking like and see what kind of games we got going here on a Friday in Sacramento. All right, so waiting to get in a game here at Thunder Valley. Pretty cool bar area back here, by the way, in the new poker room that I like because it's completely enclosed from cigarette smoke. That's one of the things they messed up at the Pepper Mill. They don't have an actual door on the room, so cigarette smoke creeps in. Big mistake there, but something they fixed here at Thunder Valley and should fix at the Wynn in Vegas too. So just kind of waited out to get in a game. I actually called up over to Stone's Casino, and they have 7 on the 2-5 list there. There's 7 on the 2-5 list here. So that's kind of annoying, but we'll see how it goes. Well, on this vlog, we have pulled off the rare feat of driving to a poker room, checking out a poker room, and not playing a single frickin' hand of poker. Didn't look like that extra 2-5 game was anywhere close to getting started, so I took off, drove across town to Stone's Gambling Hall. I have not played here before, but I'll be curious to see what it's like. I know they do a live stream here. I know a lot of the vloggers have been here. Andrew Nemi, Brad Owen, Johnny Vibes, J-Man Burton, a lot of these guys have been here, so curious to see what it's like. All right, well, a couple things to point out here. The first thing is that I saw a pretty ridiculous angle shoot in this game. Probably one of the weirder ones that I've seen. And that came when a guy was so insistent on the fact that he didn't look at his hole cards. And this is a guy who clearly knows how to play poker. I could tell by the way he's playing. Pretty smart guy, knows the deal. And I'm guessing one of the things he knows is that players in the game don't look at everybody else when they're looking at their hole cards. So he goes through this whole dog and pony show of how he hadn't looked at his cards. Guy ends up raising him up and he calls, and the flop is Jack 6-7, and he checks. The guy bets and he says, man, I still haven't looked, and he calls. Turn comes I think it was like a 3, and he checks again. The guy says, man, if I really believe that you didn't look at your cards, I should bet. Otherwise, I would check. And I could tell that guy was being pretty honest about it. But he ends up betting nonetheless. He bets like 75. And this guy, who apparently had not looked at his hole cards, makes the call. River pairs the 6, he checks, and then the other guy checks. And then this guy who claimed he had never looked at his cards turns over pocket 9s. So he played the hand exactly like I feel that an experienced player would play pocket 9s in this situation. He'd been playing extremely tight. He had not been involved in any hands. He was bitching at the table for being tight as well. And he was saying he wanted to gamble. And while he did, he just happened to wake up with the premium hand at the time. Yeah, you're full of crap. There's no way that you claim to not look at your hole cards, but just happen to play it exactly like you would have had you looked. But he kept firing barrel after barrel in terms of verbal bluff, saying that he hadn't looked, but I don't believe him for a second. Anyway, first hand, the $6 straddle is on. We get 2 calls, and I'm on the button with 7-8 of spades. I had folded every hand at this point. It's about half an hour in, and I think maybe it's an opportunity for a squeeze. So I make it 30, and I get just 1 call, and it's the straddle. The flop comes 9 of spades, 7 of clubs, 4 of hearts, and the straddle checks. I figure I probably have the best hand here a decent amount of the time. Probably worth the bet to try and take the pot down. I bet 40. And the straddle check raises me all in for 130. So it's about 90 more to call. I'm getting a pretty decent price on this, but what is he shoving with? I don't think that I'm getting check raised all in too often without at least top pair. Not a lot of draws that he could have here, so I think about it for a while, but ultimately end up throwing it away. Not sure what he ended up having there. So I'm stuck right out of the gate here, and I only buy in for 300 because it's a typical 1-3 game, and that's the way they let you do it in these 1-3 games. So next hand, the $9 straddle is on. This is actually the very next hand. We get 1 call into the gun plus 1, and I make it 25 in the cutoff with king, queen offsuit. Folds back around under the gun plus 1, and he makes the call. So about 50 in the pot, and the flop comes queen, 10, 6. He checks. I bet 30, and he makes the call. Turn comes the jack. Pretty good card for me now, adding an open-ended straight draw to my top pair second kicker. He checks. I bet 45, thinking that pretty much every hand he would call me with on that flop, he would call with on the turn as well for that price. Ultimately, though, that is not the case. He releases, and I take down my first pot of the day. About a half an hour later, another straddle is on. A lot of straddles in this 1-3 game at Stones. The $6 straddle is on, and 3 people call it. And I'm in the cutoff with ace-jack of diamonds. Definitely a spot where I want to put in the raise here. The question is how much? And the answer is more than I made it. I end up making it a total of $27, hoping to get action on this, but not too much action. Instead, 7 people end up in this pot. 6 call the raise. So we now go to a flop 7 ways. Flop, though, comes pretty good. Comes ace, queen, 3 with 2 hearts. There's about $190 in this pot. I have only about $220 left. So after it gets checked to me, pretty easy play here. I shove it all in. The big blind doesn't think about it too long, and he makes the call. I'm still pretty confident that I'm going to have him beat here with the way this hand is played out. Everyone else folds. Turn comes a complete brick. Comes the deuce of clubs. And the river comes the 8 of hearts. I've already shown my hand. And then he turns over king, jack of hearts for the rivered nut flush. So he had to get it in fairly bad there, but he did have the nut flush draw, and it came through for him. So I book a $300 loss in this 1-3 game at Stones. Yeah. On a rare occasion where I'm parking in the parking garage. That's because the entire parking lot near the poker room, blocked off for something called Hot August Nights. It happens every August in Reno. It's been something that they've been doing since 1986, where they bring in the classic of classic cars. It has to be cars older than 1976 to take part in it, and it's been this kind of phenomenon. It used to be a lot bigger than it currently is, but you still get a lot of people coming from all over the country to take part in it. So I'm going to go out there and take a look at some of those cars that they do have for it, because some of them are pretty cool if you're a car guy, which I'm not. But let's go check it out, shall we? All right, so outside the poker room, hot August nights in full effect here at the Peppermill. Let's go check out some of the cars they got around here. Some cool cars for sure. I definitely, though, don't look at any of these and find myself saying, man, I wish I had one of those. You know what I wish I had? A Tesla. The ultimate example of the anti-Hot August Nights type car. That's what I need. A Tesla Model 3, which unfortunately are still not available. But I'm ready to buy one when they are. All right, Ben Deach here at the Atlantis. It's the Vegas Golden Knights making an appearance, and we're pleased to be joined by their play-by-play man for AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountain, Dave Goucher. And Dave, pretty cool to have you guys here in town. What made Vegas Golden Knights want to come check Reno out?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it is, as much as we love Vegas and the you know, I guess the heart of the fan base is in Vegas, the fan base stretches far beyond that. So, second year in a row, the Golden Knights are doing this road trip, this caravan. So from here to Boise, to Jackson, to Salt Lake City. And from our TV coverage for our games on AT&T, we're in all those areas, plus Montana, plus parts of Idaho. So I think it's important that as much as we love Vegas, and Vegas is our home, it's good to get out of there and reach out to where a lot of other Golden Knights fans are too. And Reno's right at the top of that list.
Yeah, I had to switch to DirecTV just to get you guys, but it's been the best switch that I ever made. And obviously for you, coming over here from the Bruins and getting to do these games, I mean, it has to be amazing given what we saw in year one. I mean, at what point this past year, did it start to click that, man, this isn't just a fluke, this team is for real?
Yeah, you know, they started off 8-1, right? And I think they built a lot of early momentum and a lot of confidence from that. I think maybe for me, though, they had a stretch right around Christmas time where Pittsburgh and Tampa and Washington all came into T-Mobile, and three of the best teams in the East and in the league, obviously. And the Golden Knights won all three games. And I think, to me, that was like, if they can beat teams of this caliber, you know, they are for real. And it's funny, my partner Shane Knighty and I, a lot of times would sit up there after games and say, all right, where are they going to be at New Year's? Where are they going to be at the trade deadline? How long can they continue to keep this up? And we kept running out of benchmarks, and the next thing you know, they're playing in the June for the Stanley Cup. So yeah, it was beyond everyone's reasonable expectations.
And that Tampa game that you mentioned, right, was that Shea Theodore goal at the end,
yeah,
buzzer beater? I mean, you don't see that in hockey too much. Was that one of the moments that you really look at?
Right at the top of the list for me. You know, somebody had asked me, you know, internally the kind of list of maybe our top 5 moments of the regular season, and I think for me that was right up there. Marc-Andre Fleury going back to Pittsburgh would be there too. But yeah, for Shea Theodore, you know, Tampa came in there, as they say, right around Christmas. They were number 1 in the league in every category: most wins, most points, most goals, fewest goals allowed. And it was a great game back and forth. And then I remember, I think, saying when I called it, you know, if the Golden Knights have, whatever it was, 27 seconds to work with, if they don't score, they'll carry a power play into overtime. Well, Shea Theodore made sure it didn't reach overtime. And that was probably the loudest I heard it to that point in the season. It felt like the roof was going to come off the building.
And we just had big news of late with William Karlsson signing, but only for the 1-year deal. So is it kind of a situation, you think, where they want to see if he can have another magical year before really committing to him, or what was the thought behind that?
Well, I think, you know, it can go both ways. I mean, from a player standpoint, do you want to take a long-term, you know, the security of a long-term deal, or do you want to see if you can build on what has been a real good season? And I think they kind of just, at the end of the day, they said, all right, look, let's wrap this up for one more season. That doesn't mean they couldn't, halfway through this year, sign a longer-term deal, but I think they felt it was important, if they're not, you know, if they couldn't figure something out for a longer term, let's get something done, make sure he's in the fold, and then deal with it a little bit more down the road. But no question, I mean, for him to have a breakout season the way he did, a lot of guys did, but he was certainly at the top of that list.
And I still remember your call of that goal that he had against the Sharks. I mean, between the legs. I mean, when do you look back at that and just still continue to be amazed by what he did there?
Yeah, the thing that amazed me, and I think Shane and I talked about it, was that a lot of guys, you see him at practice, they'll mess around with that move. And Shane joked around the last time he tried it, he ended up in the corner, like on his backside, you know. But for me, the amazing thing was third period of a tie game, shorthanded, with a chance to win the division, you know, and that's, you throw all that into the mix, and I don't know if I've seen that. I've seen it in other games. It's been done, obviously, but I don't think in a game of kind of that magnitude, you know, where there was so much on the line. So it takes a lot of guts, to say the least. You know, if it goes wrong, you probably look pretty silly, but I'm sure he was pretty confident that it was going to work out.
And finally, can you just speak to the hockey and Vegas dynamic? Because a lot of people didn't think it would work. Obviously it has. What's it been like living there and seeing the NHL really take off?
Well, it's been unbelievable. You know, I'll be honest with you, as you mentioned, I was in Boston for a long time, and, you know, you make a big change, and I did radio, but I wanted to move to TV, and, you know, so you're hoping it's going to work out well, never dreaming it was going to work out the way it has so far. So, you know, the great thing for me is I realized that, you know, I'd been to Vegas a few times before I moved there, and a lot of people think of Vegas, and I get it, as the Strip. But if you live there, there's a lot more to it than just the Strip. So, you know, we're out in Summerlin, out near Red Rock Canyon. I never realized how beautiful it was, you know, when you get to certain areas. So, you know, I've only been there a year. People I know wanted their own team for a long, long time. And they love that team, as, you know, obviously people do here in Reno as well. But the fan base, they're the only game in town, if you think about it. You know, the Raiders are a couple of years away, and they love that team in a pretty strong way right now.
Great. Really appreciate it, Dave, and best of luck this next season, and thanks for joining us here in Reno.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Good stuff.
All right, it is a Friday afternoon back here at the Pepper Mill, heading up here to the North Wing area to run down an interesting hand that happened here today. Not a lot of interesting hands, but this one certainly was. And it came in a spot where we get a super OMC who is involved in this hand. We get a open to 15 in early position, and the super OMC makes the call. That's Old Man Coffee. Basically one of these guys who comes in, reads the paper, has coffee, doesn't really play too many hands. One of those kind of guys. He gets in there for 15. We have a pretty loose player that is in the hijack, and he calls the 15. So ultimately we now have three guys already in here, and it folds around to me with Jack 10 of clubs. And I figure this might be a decent spot to make a squeeze, which ultimately is what I decide to do. I re-raise it to $75, and surprisingly, the super OMC from early position makes the call. Now I can pretty reliably put him on a premium hand here of some sort. Could be ace king, could be pocket tens. Certainly it's not going to be pocket queens, kings, or aces you would re-raise, but it's going to be a very strong hand from this guy. The other guy could have anything. He could have absolutely anything still. So the flop comes out 9-4 deuce with 2 hearts and 1 club. Obviously I don't have anything here, but it gets checked to me, and I figure pretty decent chance this flop missed these guys as well. I thought it was close on whether or not I should try a bluff here, but ultimately I decided to try. I fire 150, and to my astonishment, both guys call. So now I'm basically just done with the hand. The turn comes the king of hearts, bringing in front door hearts. Definitely possible, especially the hijack here could have a flush draw, so I'm definitely not going to bet again, but it does get checked to me, which I didn't think these guys would do with a flush. Ultimately, I decided to check it back. And the river comes the queen of diamonds, giving me Broadway, giving me a king high straight. So this I now obviously am liking a lot, but there's still a flush out here. And this super OMC under the gun +1 ships all in for $430. So that is definitely a surprise. hijack folds, and now I kind of have to think about it, but can I really ever go out here? Seems pretty ridiculous to me. I definitely thought he'd be the type that would bet his flush if he made it on the turn. And if he did have it here on the river, I think he would bet a little bit smaller, trying to get paid off by a weaker hand. So ultimately, I had to decide that this is a call I have to make. Needless to say, you're good. I do make the call, and he shows pocket eights. And I don't want to try to say that I had a soul read on him here, but if he'd asked me what I thought he probably had, I would have said a hand like pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket nines. Oh, not pocket nines, so that'd be top set, but you get the idea. I thought he was right in that range because he called $75 before the flop. That was the key, putting the pieces of the puzzle of the hand together. So I end up felting this super OMC. He's pretty pissed, obviously, given the fact that my bluff turned into a value hand, and I didn't even have to value bet it. So that's the only hand I'm going to point out right now. I'm still grinding it out in this 3-5 game. We'll probably be playing late Friday night. Now, I'm playing really late Friday nights now because I'm not playing Saturday mornings at all because I have to work Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to play pretty late, see how it goes. And we will wrap this vlog up right now. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you ever want to leave a comment, I'm going to respond to that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.